Now, when we look at the clay tablets, we find out that the Sumerian doctors, Asu, also carried out, as I mentioned, some operations. Of course, simple operations, but they also make some operations on the skull, not to the brain, but on the skull. But later on, we will see that they really learned very important surgical techniques. They knew how to keep it clean, etc. They used antiseptics, things like that. Well, anyway, now castration was performed by Asu. Castration was important because the kings and the emperors in the palaces, they had many women around, and they wanted to keep the men servants to stay away from the wound just by castration. Also in Ottoman Empire, Haduma. So it is most of these habits were translated or transformed from Sumerian culture. As I muska, also okunmusu, dua, etc. They all were imported from Mesopotamia because they were all in connection. Hittites had good connections with Egyptians, and Sumerians had connections with many other civilizations. They imported materials, some metals, some organic compounds, some dried fruits, some food, some textiles they exported. So they were not isolated societies. So they learned from each other that they carried out surgery. I'm sure that they learned some kind of surgical operations from the doctors of Egyptians, and Egyptians of Hittites. So they had many travelers who brought some information. Well, anyway, so we have definitely an evidence on a clay tablet that castration was carried out by Asu. There is a written document in a court, and somebody's in a court. There was a man, Inuk, Hadum. He was a witness, and his name was written in a court document. Yani mahkeme kararında da ayrıca bahsediliyor. Now, we know that they carried out many surgical operations, and we have many surgical instruments used by Mesopotamian surgeons. They are in museums. We have replicas of many of them in our Science and Technology Museum. Now, some of the surgical operations that they carried out, something like drainage of liver abscess, ciğerde abse, ki yani oraya kadar iniyorlar yani. So it's described in the text in one of the clay tablets in Mesopotamia, and they even mention which part of the rib they will cut. They said you have to cut between third and the fourth rib. So they know what they are doing. It's not just a trial and error. Of course, many people tried it and error, maybe it's hundreds of years, but they finally learned that you have to cut, you have to make a cut, small cut, between third and the fourth rib. Another clay tablet, it's a prescription for disease of head. It says, it gives a procedure, requires draining the abscess and scraping the infected skull bone if necessary. So if you have some kind of infection on your head, they clean the infection, and then they even reach to the skull, and then if it is affected by the bacteria, they scrape the bone to make sure that it doesn't create any problems in the future. Then probably they disinfect, and then probably the patient will be all right. He will be healed. So they know how to use alcohol, beer, soap as disinfecting agents. And also, since Sumerian small city states had war between each other all the time. The war in Mesopotamia never stopped. Like today, Israelites on one side, Muslim Arabs on the other side, we are on the one side. They were always in war. Like I mentioned about Hammurabi, the Babylonian king. He attacked everybody to enlarge expand his empire. So because of these wars, you had to have some doctors and you had to have surgeons because they are wounded on the arm. If you didn't cut the arm of the soldier, then he would die of infection. So they had, or if he was stabbed or wounded, you had to clean the wound so that the soldier wouldn't die. So they had military surgeons, military doctors, along with the army. All armies in the world always carried military surgeons or military doctors when they go to war. Ottomans, Hittites, all of them. So it starts, as far as we know, it started with Sumerians. Now, when we look at the laws of Hammurabi, we see that there are some laws related to surgeons and doctors. The punishments, if the doctor or the surgeon makes a mistake and the patient dies or the patient becomes blind, the doctor was punished. So the doctor were very afraid to be punished because of Hammurabi. Just like today, if someone dies or gets worse in a hospital, they take the doctors to the court. Unfortunately, these days, many doctors resign from hospitals because so that many people attack the doctors. If somebody dies, they attack the doctor. What can you do? Your patient is about to die anyway. And I don't know if you follow the lowest point in entering to the medical school. It gets lower and lower. It's terrible. Now, the worst students now can enter medical school because many bright students, they do not like to go to medical school. Medicine was always a very popular profession. During the Sumerians, Hittites, Ottoman Empire, always medical doctors were very important people and respected people. Also during the Republic, until a couple of years ago, still medical schools were very respected and the graduates were very respectable people. But now it's unfortunate that many doctors resigned and they either went to Europe or they went to private hospitals. So doctors were always very important people in the society, even during the time of Sumerians and even before. So we have to be careful about the doctors, and we have to prevent people attacking these doctors because we all need them. But it's very I was very upset to see the results of university entrance exam. Well, anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that doctors were always important people and they should be in the society. Now, in Hammurabi's code, we see that they used some instruments, some surgical instruments, and when they made mistakes, they had to pay some money to the patients. There are many laws special for doctors. Now, we see some seals where some medical instruments are represented and the image of the doctor. This is a cylinder seal of a asu, a doctor who heals the patients with herbs and plants and some mineral medicines. As we can see, there is a doctor, there are some instruments. These are the instruments used by medical doctors of asu, practitioner doctors. Very similar to Roman surgical instruments and Ottoman surgical instruments. Very similar. Now this is the seal, original seal of an asu. As I mentioned, you make the seal maybe about this size, and you carve, and then on a clay you just roll it, and then the image, positive image, comes up, and then you dry it, and this is the seal of the doctor. So you know that this doctor perhaps cured the patient, or this doctor has some kind of a contract. So ASU always had a seal. Also in commercial contracts, they had to seal the contract. So seal was very important in Mesopotamia. All the government authorities, doctors, judges, they all had to have also merchants, they also had seals. In the early days in Turkey, when many people didn't know how to read and write, they used seal, mühür. Have you ever seen mühür of ignorant people who didn't know how to read and write? When they went to the court or when they went to a government office, they had to press their seal on which their name was carved. Gördünüz mü öyle bir şey? It was something like this. For many years, old people did not know how to read and write. They had a small metal piece, and on it they had the name, let's say, Ural, OA, carved, and then it had a handle. You pressed it on a small piece of cloth. Underneath there's some cotton with an ink. You pressed it, and then you put it on the paper. It was your signature. Since it was carved by different people, none of them looked similar. That was what they did. Or they pressed their fingers, thumb. You press just like in some elections. Hiç mühürlü seçime parmağı bastınız mı hiç? Denk geldiniz mi seçimde?
Annem babamı hatırlıyorum ben öyle mühürlendiklerini.
Yakın zamana kadar seçimde hani ayrıca kimlikten sonra bir de parmak basıyorduk. Fingerprint is very important all over the world. So they have their fingerprints in computers of all countries. So that's how they catch the thieves or the murderers. So in the election, to make sure that you don't carry out a fake identification card, you had to press your thumb maybe 10 years ago or something in Turkey. But anyway, now, Sumerians were very clean people. And they knew that if you want to stay healthy, you have to be clean. You have to wash your hands. You have to wash your face. You have to wash your hands before the dinner. You have to wash your hands after the dinner, especially when you come out of the bathroom, the toilet, you have to wash your hands. And that's why the name of toilet was sulak, which means dirty hand. So they warned the people to wash their hands, come in and out of the toilet. As I said, even the Sumerian culture used the name sulak for toilet. If you look at what it means, su means hand, which la means not, la like in Arabic, la, no, not. Ku is clean, which says if you go to toilet, your hand will be dirty, it means. Toilet is dirty hand. The name of the toilet is dirty hand. Yani VC demeyeceğiz, kirli el. Adı kirli el. So you remember that you have to wash your hand. They were so smart to call toilet dirty hand. Okay. The medical tablet says if he rubs his eyes with his unwashed hands, as long as he lives, his eyes will be sore. So he wants to make sure that you wash your hands before you touch your hand, because you touch everything and your hands are usually, our hands are the dirtiest part of our body because we touch everything. When I touch it, I don't know what was here, you see? Same, you touch the desk, you don't know what's there. Or you are in a bus, you touch, and then you don't know what. So they knew that you should wash your hands all the time. So you should not touch your eyes because it's a very sensitive organ. You can always infect your eyes. So another one says, if he washes his hands and then rubs his eyes, he will have protective spirit. The spirit will, it doesn't say that you will infect it because of microbes. They don't know anything about the presence of microbes. For thousands of years, people did not believe that there are living creatures in microbes, in very small the sizes that we cannot see. They never believed that. Until when? When did they learn that some bacteria were alive and we don't see them? How did we discover that there are bacteria which infects us? When? There was a discovery, and then we discovered that there are living creatures which are not seen by our eyes, naked eyes. Ne zaman öğrenmiş olabiliriz bakterilerin varlığını? Çok basit canım. Yani büyük bir soru diye sormak istemedim. Hı? Tabii maksat o.
Mikroskopun keşfiyle.
Of course. When they discovered lenses were discovered, I think, in Syria. But then microscope and telescopes were made after the invention of lenses. Lenses were a Syrian invention a long time ago. But then Netherlands people, they put together lenses, and then they produced the microscope. Then Galilei put together some lenses and made a telescope. So when they looked at the microscope, they went crazy. They didn't believe it, that they were moving creatures under the microscope. When they spit, they didn't believe that. In their spit, thousands of creatures were just moving around. It was crazy. People didn't believe, but after a while they had to. Well, anyway, so Sumerians didn't know that there was bacteria or microbes or viruses, but what they knew was the results, action and the results. They said, if your hands are dirty, if you touch your hands, you will be in trouble. If you wash your hands and touch your hands, don't worry, nothing happens. The spirit will protect you. The doctors were smart enough to wash their hands all the time. When they touch a patient, when they carry out an operation, they always wash their hands. And then they also washed the wound. They rubbed it, they washed with soap. And they used some antiseptics by mixing alcohol, honey, and myrrh. Did you know that honey is antiseptic? Var mı bilen? Yeah? When Alexander the Great died, they buried him in a box of honey so that his body would survive indefinitely. So you can keep the dead body for a long time in honey. So in Ottoman Empire, they also knew that. So when they kill a general, sometimes the Padishah gets upset with the commander because he loses war, right? And he orders that, he sends an order, he says, I don't want him to come back alive. Kill him and send me his head, right? His head was transferred from Europe to Istanbul in a box full of honey, so he could see the head. So all emperors did that. So in many cultures, if they order the death of a commander or a person, and they want to be sure that he's dead, they wanted to see the head. It was a habit, and they always carried it in honey, because honey protects the body to be deteriorated. So it was proper preparation, alcohol, honey, and myrrh is to smell good. And in the treatment of wounds, there were 3 steps, just like today. Washing the wound, you clean the wound before you touch it. Make sure that it doesn't get infected anymore, and also you don't want to touch it when it's not washed. And then you apply a plaster, merhem, and then you apply a bandage, just like today. Yarayı temizliyoruz, bir ilaç sürüyoruz, merhem, sonra da gazlı bezle sarıyoruz. Niye gazlı bez? Because the microbes cannot go through the textile, cotton textile. We also put some cotton today. They didn't know that they could put cotton, but cotton, as I mentioned, prevents the permission of bacteria to your wound if you put it on the wound. That's why many doctors put merhem or cream and then put cotton, and then they use the textile, sargı bezi, the binding. So there are some clay tablets that they also used beer and wine with hot water to wash their hands. Because beer contains about 4 to 5% alcohol, that's okay. No bacteria can live in beer because 5% alcohol kills them all. And hot water, which is very good. So they knew how to clean their hands carefully and make sure that all the bacteria is killed or is not anymore on their hands. So they also use soap and water, just like today. All the surgeons, they wash their hand with soap before they enter to the operation room. They wash all their hands all the way here. You can see that they go like this after they wash. They don't use any towel. They use sterilized towels. They prepared poultices, lapa. So poultices were very important in Sumerian medicine and also koca karı ilaçları. Have you heard? Bir şey yapalım, lapa yapalım da yaraya koyalım. Hiç böyle bir şey duydunuz mu anneannelerden filan? Yaşlı kadınlar severler. Lahanadan filan bir lapa yapıp oraya koymayı. Ve çoğu zaman da yani lapayı tabii her şeyden yapmıyorlar. Buğdaydan yapmıyor da işte mesela lahana mahana gibi şeylerden. Orada kanıtlanmış yani öyle bir lapa o yarayı iyileştiriyor. Ya da iltihabın gelişmesini, akmasını, absenin sağlıyor. So it is again, we learned it from Mesopotamia, from the Sumerians. And again, the surgical instruments. This is an amusing. These are original photographs. Now, they used hashish or poppy, or opium poppy. They called hulgil, and they used to call it keyif bitkisi. Hulgil is keyif bitkisi. So they were smoking opium and then enjoying life for, of course, for a short time. But so they used it as medicine. And the hulgil extracts, they extracted the effective ingredient. Now you see, they learned how to extract the effective ingredients. In the beginning they didn't know, but they realized that if you extract it, it will be more efficient instead of just crushing the whole poppy. They removed the extract and then used as suppository fitil, basur için. For hemorrhoids, they prepared fitil or suppositories to relieve the pain and also cure the hemorrhoids. They also use soap. Soap is also a good drug or medicine to cure hemorrhoids. They knew that because it cleans. The idea is to keep it clean. Now, they also the doctors, Sumerian doctors, knew that some illnesses are contagious. So they know how to prevent, just like we did in COVID-19. Exactly. You can just rephrase it. You would think that it is for COVID-19. Let's read it. It says, I have heard that Naname is ill with an illness. Yet she is in the palace, a lot of many women mingle. So apparently she is a lady, maybe the wife or sister or daughter or a relative of a king. She mingled with many, there are many jariyas. So she, speaks to them, run around and they play games, whatever. So they mingle with many women. So they are close to many women, which is very harmful because they may carry the illness. That nobody drinks from cup she drinks, just like COVID-19. Do not drink water from someone who had COVID-19 or you suspect that he had COVID-19. Nobody sits on the seat she sits and nobody is to lie on the bed she lies. And many women are not mingled with her. So don't sit the chair that COVID-19 patient sat. Don't lie to the bed. COVID-19 patient lied on the bed. And again reminds that the ladies, Jariya, stay away from the princess because you can transfer your COVID-19 or the other infectious diseases, contagious diseases, contagious disease to the princess. Or you will get sick and then you will spread it to a whole palace. So stay away from the princess who is ill or she has COVID. Just let her isolated. And finally says, that illness is contagious. What else should he say? He knew that we will have not COVID-19 today probably, so he took prevention. You can be a princess, but you still can be COVID-19 or any other contagious disease. Now, about upset stomach, which is illness of the modern time also, many people have upset stomach. I don't know, maybe 30%, maybe even more. So if a person's stomach is continually upset, and depression, you see, they are related. Then we mentioned about depression and stomach ache, they are related. Continually falls on him. If he has plenty of saliva, ağzından çok fazla salya geliyorsa, he must drink a lot of water because CHEM has gotten him. Now, everything is correct except CHEM, of course. But CHEM, you may say that perhaps virus, right? They mean God, but in modern time, we know that if the patient has stomach problem and he's in depression, definitely he must drink too much. It is good because if you drink water, your upset stomach will come down because you have too much acid. The acid is harming your stomach because you have some small wounds in your stomach. The acid, hydrochloric acid, pH is 3. It's very high pH. pH is 3 in your stomach, hydrochloric acid. So that harms the little wounds in your stomach and the sensitive places. Therefore, if you drink water, pH will go up to 4 or 5. Then you will be more comfortable. So it will not, you will not have a burning stomach or sour. So drinking water is a proper thing, because if your stomach is upset all the time, you get into depression. They are related. So it was good decision for the doctor to say drink water. In the opposite, he says, if a person's stomach is continually upset and depression continually falls on him, if his lips are continually dry, sometimes when you are in depression, you don't drink water, so your lips are dry. He says, please drink, let him drink water. He must drink a lot of water because CHEM got in him. Okay, so they always related the diseases to a demon or a bad god or a devil. But the prescription is correct. Also, they understand the problem that depression and upset stomach are related. Dry lips or saliva, they are related. In Turkish doctors say something, teşhis tedavinin yarısıdır. That's a good saying. Teşhis tedavinin yarısıdır. To understand what kind of illness you have, the first thing I have to do is to understand what's your illness. Then we know what to do. But if you don't understand the problem, so it's true for in all our life. So if you have a problem in the house, electricity problem, if you understand why you have problem with the electricity, then you can solve it. But first you have to understand what the problem is. So that's a good saying for the doctor, teşhis tedavinin yarısıdır. It's for politicians, for students, if you get bad grades, you know that you didn't study, so you have to study more, then you will get good grades. So you have to first understand the problem and accept that that is your problem. Also for depression, you see, we have to understand why we are in depression, then we can solve it. So we see that how smart the Sumerian people were. We are talking about 5,000 years ago. And most of the time, when I was a child, I used to think that they were stupid. They were not stupid. They were just as smart as we are today. They were not stupid. I mean, I would say 90% of the people in the world cannot make the inventions they have made. Only 10% can do, and only 10% of them made those inventions. They were the distribution of very smart people, average smart people, and stupid people are the same. Doesn't change much between nations. So if you have a large population, you have more genius people than smaller nation. It's all statistics. So it was the same for Sumerians. So it's not very surprising that those people who were probably geniuses made all these discoveries. It's not a surprise. Normally, I feel that I'm surprised when I learn that they knew so many things they discovered, but if you think about it logically, then you say, okay, they had geniuses also. Not everybody was genius in them, like today, but the genius people were just like us, and they made all those inventions without any information, because there were no written books, no information. They were just used their brain and then read perhaps many documents. Of course, there were some documents, and put together and then solved the problem. Okay. Now, a medicine says you will crush alum and blow into his ears with a reed. Now, it may seem stupid, but it's not, because alum is a disinfectant. If you have some problems in your ear infection, that would cure. Powder alum is not bad. For itching head, alum, sumac, nigella, çörek otu, and honey bound on the head. So you make a mixture, and alum again kills the viruses or bacteria. Another one, alum, rose extract, butter as a salve. Again, another melhem. You see, honey is a disinfecting agent. Alum is a disinfecting agent. What else? Butter forms a medium. When we make cream, we always use fat or oil, right? Or Vaseline, whatever, Vaseline. So as I always say, they were as smart as we are now. We talked about alum. It's potassium aluminum sulfate. You all know. It's found in the nature, partly pure. There is an important use of it. It's septic. Stiptic, sorry. Not stiptic. Kan taşı diye bir şey duydunuz mu? Kan taşı. Berberlerde olur değil mi? Böyle beyaz bir çubuk. Keserse onunla kanı durdurur. So, alum is a compound which can stop bleeding. It's antiseptic, and also it stops the bleeding. Flocculates. It's a flocculating agent. So it gathers together the solids, so it's flocculated. And because of that, we use it for purification of water in big water treatment let's say, in our lake, we used to treat water, and I don't know if we do it today. We used to pump Emir Lake's water. We used to process it there. We used to filter and then use alum, let it settle, and then filter it, and then pump it to our campus. We always drank, we had 3 wells. And also, when the wells did not work enough, we added water from the lake. We just treat it. Now, the city waters, most of them, they come from the dams. Barajlar o yüzden var. So you treat the water and then pump to the city. Otherwise, you cannot have enough water from the wells. Pınar suyu çok az. Okay. So, they knew the importance of alum, and they used it just like we use today. Also, it's used as an antiperspirant. So if you have some solid antiperspirants that you put on your arm that contains alum today, same. Because it absorbs, it kills the bacteria. So when our underarm stinks, it's not because of our sweat, because sweat creates a moisture. Then the bacteria grows. Bacteria dies, and then it stinks. It's not our sweat that stinks. The bacteria there. So when you put alum, bacteria dies, and you don't let bacteria to grow your underarm, and you never stink. Today in many deodorants and all those sticks, ne diyorlarını bilmiyorum ama hani böyle şey bir beyaz şey yumuşak bir şey satıyor sürmek için kol altına. Ha? Ha? Ne? Bilmiyorum. Ama satıldığını biliyorum. Okay. So bacteria on the body causes bad odor. Alum kills bacteria and prevents the bad odor. As I said. Another property, as I flocculating agent, when you have water treatment factories, first you filter the big size particles, but then you have to add some alum to settle down the colloidal particles. And then you have very clear water like crystal. It's also a flame retardant, alum. So if you want to prepare a textile to make it flame retardant, you can treat it with alum. Also, there are some papers that you cannot burn. It doesn't burn easily. So you add some alum to the compounds that you treat water, because water is just cellulose fibers. But if you don't add some kind of polymers, it will not be strong. So to make it, use some natural or sometimes synthetic polymers to produce various kinds of paper so that it doesn't tear easily and you can write on it. You put some barium sulfate and you put some natural polymers, and then it becomes a paper that we use daily. So if you use alum, it becomes a paper which doesn't burn easily. I mean, you can burn it, but it doesn't just catch flame easily like the normal paper. Also, it's used in face masks to remove the black acne and the scars of acne. Güzellik salonlarında kullanıyorlar. Now, let's talk, as I said in the beginning, doctors, dentists, chemists, they were all same person sometimes. One man did almost all of them. Dentistry was among them, because if you had tooth pain, you go to the doctor, there was no one else. Maybe in a city there are only one or two doctors, also, not many. And then he had to operate on your tooth, not only pulling or removing the tooth or teeth, one or two teeth or one tooth. They also had to make operations on the tooth. We'll see how they did it. Now, there's an article published in 2006 in Nature journal. It proved that 9,000 years ago, long before the Sumerians, dentists drilled several teeth of patients. It's hard to imagine, 9,000 years ago, somebody is drilling your tooth or several teeth. And they found the skeleton and several skeletons, and they counted the number of teeth which were drilled. About 11 teeth were drilled. Now, they didn't have any electricity. Can anybody explain, or can anybody has an answer? How did they let the drill work? Because you have to rotate it. To tip, you can do it. Flint, çakmak taşı is a good material to use as a drill, because tooth is not as strong as a rock. It's much softer. In fact, they reconstructed that drill, and it took less than a minute to drill a normal person's, or synthetic teeth. Less than 1 minute. They drilled 2 millimeters. So we know that flint works. But how are you going to make it rotate?
I have seen various primordial tools to create fire.
Yeah.
Like they use some kind of arc.
Bow, yeah. And string, yeah. And then roll it around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's called bow drill. Eh? So these skeletons or jaws of the dead man who had an operation on his teeth was found in Pakistan, and they used the drills. It was published in Nature, as I mentioned. Now, this is the photograph of the drill, of drilled tooth 9,000 years ago. Now, they reconstructed the drill and with a tip, and then when they, because the head, the flint tip was found next to the skeletons. So they reconstructed the drill at the same size of flint, and then when they put it into the cavity, it just matched perfectly. So they were sure that that flint was used as a tip of the drill. Now, we see that this is the original jaw of the dead person, and this is the flint tip, and this is the reconstructed drill, and you can see that there are several holes made with that drill. 9,000 years ago. Now, just like he said, you see, this is a bow drill. He goes like this, keman çalar gibi, and then makes drill. Makes a hole on the tooth. Now, let's see how they construct the drill. Bow drill. Ne oldu? This technique was used everywhere in the world, everywhere, because they all had bow. They knew how to do it in every civilization in the past. Burada kıvılcımları altta toplamak için o deliydi. Burada amaç tabii ateş yapmak. Yaprağın üstünde kıvılcımları topluyor. Ne olduk? Now, we now know that they drilled the tooth with a bow drill. But of course, when you have cavity, the reason that they use the drill is to remove the cavity. But then, if you leave it like that, of course, again, you will have pain. So you have to fill it with a certain material to protect. Just like today, you go to the dentist, he drills, removes the cavity, and then puts some compounds, either amalgam or some acrylic material, so that you have no connection between air and the cavity. That then you can live like that for many years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, depending on what kind of filling they used, silver or gold, whatever. But we don't know, because definitely they used an organic compound, either beeswax or maybe asphalt or something similar, because they wouldn't be able to use gold or silver in those days. So probably they used organic compounds. But these people, the archaeologists, were lucky to find that they used beeswax right here in this jaw. There is the reference for that. This red orange thing is beeswax. They carried out the chemical analysis in an instrumental laboratory, and then they proved that it was beeswax. It lasted just by luckily. Normally, wax would be disintegrated, but somehow it was protected there for thousands of years. Now, when we talk about cavity, this tube, it was known for thousands of years in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, everywhere, even South America, everywhere it was known. Because everybody had cavity in tooth because they had tooth pain. But it was not written down until, of course, alphabet was invented by Sumerians, Babylonians. Normally, I used to think also that Sumerians wrote down the first time about the cavity in our tooth, but later on it was found out that it was Babylonians, not the Sumerians. In many books we say that it's Sumerians, but it's not, it's Babylonians. They were the one who first time mentioned the cavity in human beings' teeth. It was in a poem. But the problem is that Sumerians, Babylonians, Egyptians, people in Ottoman Empire, Hittites, they all believed that there were small worms in our teeth that was causing the cavity. So the poem of Babylonians talks about the worms living in our teeth. Now, this is a book written during Ottoman Empire, and I don't know if you can see clearly that there are worms like devils in our teeth if we have cavity. Let me see if I can make it larger. Oops. Can you see it here? Like a devil. Oh, it's not a good photograph, but so they lived in our teeth, they thought. And in the poem of Babylonian, it says, praise to God, or there's a prayer, or a poem says, it is the supposed the worm speaks. Tells the God, why did you not give me a chance to suck blood? The God says, well, you are everywhere, you can eat plants, you can eat anything, what else do you want? And they said, no, we don't want that. It's a poem. What do you want? We want to be in the tooth of human beings so that we can suck blood from the root. So this is the first time that they mentioned that. Babylonians believe that, and then they become happy. So God says, okay, go to the teeth of human beings and suck blood. That's how the poem ends. So Babylonians are trying to tell people that the worms are in your teeth because they prayed to the God and then they settled in your teeth. So even modern times, people thought that there were some worms. Ya kurtçuk, bayağı kurtçuk böyle bakınca görülecek diye düşünüyorlar yani. Hani tabii orada bakteri biri, o başka bir şey ama onların düşüncesi bildiğimiz kurtçuk yani. Hani yarada kurt oluşur ya bazen kötü yaralarda. Şimdi olmuyor. Eskiden insanlar yaralandığı zaman oradan kurt çıkardı yani. O kadar berbat yara olurdu. Ve insanlar ölürdü zaten. Bir asker savaşta yaralandıysa kesin ölürdü yani. Hele kemik kırıldıysa kimse kurtaramazdı, kangren olurdu. Ayağını keser kurtarmaya çalışırdı. Kolu keserlerdi ama kestikten sonra gene bakamadıkları için ölürdü yani. Birinci Dünya Savaşı'nda yaralanan hemen her asker öldü. Penisilin icat edildikten sonra hiç kimse yaralanınca ölmedi. O yüzden kurtlu yara olurdu yani. Kurttan kasıtlar o böyle bıngıl bıngıl oynayan kurtlar. Okay, this is a dentist in Middle Ages. Barbers used to pull the teeth.
Şeytan gibi çizmişler.
Korkuyorsun giderken. Çizen adam da korkuyor gitmeye. Bağırta bağırta çekiyor. Ellerini tutuyorlar böyle. Bağlıyorlar adamı. Cayır cayır bağırıyor. Kan akıyor her yerden. Kasap gibi adam işte. Baksana dediğin gibi tipi de bozuk. This is late 1800. Mother pulling the tooth of the child. This is a real photograph. Okay, that's the end of the course. Any questions?